Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we are continuing with the read aloud of Life and Death Twilight Reimagined by Stephenie Meyer. Now, temporarily I am going to be moving my filming schedule around a little bit because of final projects and exams that are going to be coming up. I have writing portfolios that I need to put together for school. So until all of that is finished, I'm not going to be able to record like I normally do. Which would be like a couple chapters every single day. But I do still want to get content up. So next week I'm going to be premiering some of the chapters that I've already pre-recorded, which will be premiering on Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday. And this is going to premiere next Wednesday, which is chapter 6, Scary Stories. But before we begin the reading, I just have to make the quick disclaimer that I do not own any of the text being presented here, nor am I trying to present any of the text as my own. This is all simply a read aloud that I'm doing on the channel for entertainment purposes, and it is all in fair use. So again, this is Life and Death Twilight Reimagined by Stephenie Meyer, Chapter 6, Scary Stories. While I tried to concentrate on the third act of Macbeth, I was listening for my truck. I would have thought I'd hear the engines roar even over the pounding rain, but when I went to look out the window again, it was suddenly there. I wasn't super excited to get up on Friday, and it more than lived up to my negative expectations. Of course, there were all the fainting comments. Jeremy especially seemed to get a kick out of that story. He laughed till he choked when Logan pretended to swoon at the lunch table. Luckily, Michaela had kept her mouth shut, and no one seemed to know about Edith's involvement. Jeremy did have a lot of questions about yesterday's lunch, though. What did Edith Cullen want? He'd asked in trig. Not sure. It was the truth. She never really got to the point. She looks kind of mad. I'd shrugged. Did she? I've never seen her sit with anyone but her family before. That was weird. Yeah, weird, I'd agreed. He'd seemed kind of irritated that I didn't have better answers. The worst part about Friday was that even though I knew she wasn't going to be there, I still hoped. When I walked into the cafeteria with Jeremy and Michaela, I couldn't keep from looking at her table, where Royal, Archie, and Jessamine sat, talking with their heads close together. I wondered if Archie had been the one to drive my truck home last night and what he thought about the chore. At my normal table, everyone was full of our plans for the next day. Michaela was animated again, putting a lot more trust in the local weatherman than I thought he deserved. I'd have to see his promised sun before I believed it. At least it was warmer today, almost 60, though it was still wet. Maybe the trip wouldn't be totally miserable. I caught a few unfriendly glances from Logan during lunch, which I didn't really understand. Just like everyone else, I'd laughed along with his fainting stunt. But I got some clarification as we walked out of the room. I guess he didn't realize how close behind him I was. He ran a hand over his slicked back silver blonde hair. I don't know why Buford, he said my name with a sneer, doesn't just sit with the Cullens now, I heard him mutter to Michaela. I'd never noticed before what a nasal voice he had, and I was surprised by the malice in it. I really didn't know him well. Not well enough for him to dislike me, or so I would have thought. He's my friend. He sits with us, Michaela snapped back, loyal but also territorial. I paused to let Jeremy and Alan pass. I didn't want to hear any more. Later at dinner, Charlie seemed excited about my trip to La Push in the morning. I guessed he felt guilty for leaving me home alone on the weekends, but he'd spent too many years building his habits to break them now, and I never minded the alone time. Of course, he knew the names of all the kids going, and their parents, and their great-grandparents too, probably. He obviously approved. I wondered if he would approve of my plan to ride to Seattle with Edith. He seemed to like the Cullens a lot, but there was no reason to tell him about it. Dad, do you know a place called Goat Rocks or something like that? I think it's south of Mount Rainier. Yeah, what? Yeah, why? I shrugged. Some kids were talking about camping up there. It's not a very good place for camping. He sounded surprised. Too many bears. Most people go there during hunting season. Huh. Maybe I got it wrong. I meant to sleep in, but the light woke me. Instead of the same gloomy half-light I'd gotten up to for the past 2 months. There was a bright, clear yellow streaming through my window. I couldn't believe it, but there it was, finally, the sun. It was in the wrong place, too low, and not as close as it should be, but it was definitely the sun. Clouds still ringed the horizon, but a wide blue patch took up most of the sky. I threw on my clothes quickly, afraid the blue would disappear as soon as I turned my back. Newton's Olympic Outfitters was just north of town. I'd seen the store, but never stopped there, not having much desire for the supplies needed to intentionally stay outdoors over an extended period of time. In the parking lot, I saw Michaela's Suburban and Taylor's Sentra. As I pulled up next to their vehicles, I saw the kids standing around in front of the Suburban. Erica was there, and 2 other girls I knew from class. I was pretty sure their names were Becca and Colleen. Jeremy was there, flanked by Alan and Logan. 3 other guys stood with them, including one I remembered falling over in gym on Friday. That one gave me a dirty look as I climbed out of the truck and then said something to Logan. They laughed loudly and Logan pretended he was passing out. The other guy caught him at first and then let him fall. They both busted up again. Logan just lying there on the pavement with his hands behind his head, so it was going to be like that. At least Michaela was happy to see me. "You came!" she called, sounding thrilled. "As I promised, and I promised it would be sunny, didn't I?" "I told you I was coming." We're just waiting for Leanne and Sean, unless you invited someone," she added. "Nope, it's just me," I lied lightly, hoping I wouldn't get caught. But then again, it would be worth getting caught out if it meant I could spend the day with Edith. Michaela smiled. "Do you want to ride with me? It's either that or Leanne's mom's minivan." "Sure." Her smile was huge. It was so easy to make her happy. "You can have shotgun," she promised, and I saw Jeremy look up at us and then scowl. Not so easy to make Michaela and Jeremy happy at the same time. The numbers worked out, though. Leanne brought 2 extra people, so every space was necessary. I made Jeremy climb in before me so that he was wedged between Michaela and me in the front seat of the Suburban. Michaela could have been more gracious about it, but at least Jeremy seemed appeased. It was only 15 minutes to La Push from Forks, with thick green forests edging the road most of the way and the Quileatu River snaking between it twice. I was glad I had the window seat. We'd rolled the windows down. The Suburban was claustrophobic with 9 people in it, and I tried to absorb as much sunlight as possible. I'd been to the beaches around La Push lots of times during my Forks summers with Charlie, so the mile-long crescent of First Beach was familiar, still breathtaking though. The water was dark gray, even in the sunlight, white-capped and heaving onto the rocky shore. Islands rose out of the still harbor waters with sheer cliff sides, each with a spiky crown of black firs. The beach had only a thin border of actual sand at the water's edge. After that, it was a million smooth rocks that looked uniformly gray from a distance, but close up were every color a stone could be. The tide line was piled with huge driftwood trees, bleached white by the salty waves, some piled together against the forest's edge, some lying alone just out of reach of the waves. There was a strong breeze coming off the waves, cool and briny. Pelicans floated on the swells while seagulls and a lone eagle circled above them. The clouds still crowded the edges of the sky, but for now, the sun shone warmly in his backdrop of blue. We trudged through the thick sand down to the beach, Michaela leading the way to a circle of driftwood logs that had clearly been used for parties before. There was a fire ring already in place, filled with black ashes. Erica and the girl I thought was named Becca gathered broken branches of driftwood from the driest piles against the forest edge, and soon had a teepee-shaped construction built atop the old cinders. "Have you ever seen a driftwood fire?" Michaela asked me. I was sitting on one of the bleached benches. Jeremy and Alan sat on either side of me, but most of the other guys sat across the circle from us. Michaela knelt by the fire, holding a cigarette lighter to one of the smaller pieces of kindling. "No," I said as she placed a blazing twig carefully against the teepee. "You'll like this then. Watch the colors." She lit another small branch and laid it alongside the first. The flame started to lick quickly up the dry wood. "It's blue," I said in surprise. "The salt does it. Cool, isn't it?" She lit one more piece, placed it where the fire hadn't caught yet, and then came to sit by me. Luckily, Jeremy was on her other side. He turned to Michaela and started asking her questions about the plan for the day. I watched the strange blue green flames crackle upward. After a half hour of talk, some of the girls wanted to hike to the nearby tide pools, but most of the guys wanted to head up to the one shop in the village for food. I wasn't sure which side to join. I wasn't hungry, and I loved the tide pools. I'd loved them since I was just a kid. They were one of the only things I ever looked forward to when I had to come to Forks. On the other hand, I'd also fallen into a lot of them. Not a big deal when you're 7 and with your dad. It reminded me suddenly of Edith. Not that she wasn't always somewhere in my thoughts, and how she'd told me not to fall into the ocean. Logan was the one who made my decision for me. He was the loudest voice in the argument, and he wanted food. The group splintered into 3 pieces: food, hiking, and staying put, with most people following Logan. I waited until Taylor and Erica had committed to going with him before I got up quietly to join the pro-hiking group. Michaela smiled wide when she saw that I was coming. The hike was short, but I hated to lose the sun in the trees. The green light of the forest was a strange setting for the teenage laughter, too murky and menacing to be in harmony with the joking around me. I had to concentrate on my feet and head, avoiding roots below and branches above, and I fell behind. When I broke through the dark edge of the forest and found the rocky shore again, I was the last one. It was low tide, and a tidal river flowed past us on its way to the sea. Along its rocky banks, shallow pools that never completely drained were filled with tiny sea creatures. I was cautious not to lean too far over the little ocean ponds. The others were reckless, leaping over the rocks, perching precariously on the edges. I found a stable-looking rock on the fringe of one of the largest pools and sat there, totally entertained by the natural aquarium below me. The bouquets of anemones rippled in the invisible current. Hermit crabs scurried around the edges in their spiraled shells. Starfish stuck motionless to the rocks and each other, and one small black eel with white racing stripes wove through the bright green weeds, waiting for the sea to return. Watching most of my attention, except for the small part of my mind that was wondering what Edith was doing now and trying to imagine what she would be saying if she were here instead. Suddenly, everyone was hungry, and I got up stiffly to follow them back. I tried to keep up better this time through the woods, so naturally I tripped. I got some shallow scrapes on my palms, but they didn't bleed much. When we got back to First Beach, the group we'd left behind had multiplied. As we got closer, I could see the shining straight black hair and copper skin of the new arrivals, teenagers from the reservation come to socialize. Food was already being passed around, and the hikers hurried to claim a share. Erica introduced us to the new kids as we each entered the Driftwood Circle. Alan and I were the last to arrive, and as Erica said our names, I noticed a younger girl sitting on the ground near the fire look up at me with interest. I sat down next to Alan, and Michaela joined us with sandwiches and sodas. The girl, who looked to be the oldest of the visitors, rattled off the names of the 7 others with her. All I caught was that one of the boys was also named Jeremy, and the girl who noticed me was named Julie. It was relaxing to sit next to Alan. He was an easy person to be around. He didn't feel the need to fill every silence with talk, leaving me free to think while we ate. And what I thought about was how strangely time seemed to flow in Forks, passing in a blur at times, with single images standing out more clearly than others. And then at other times, every second was significant, etched into my mind. I knew exactly what caused the difference, and it was troubling. During lunch, the clouds started to move in, darting in front of the sun momentarily, casting long shadows across the beach and blackening the waves. As they finished eating, people started to drift away in 2s and 3s. Some walked down to the edge of the waves, trying to skip rocks across the choppy surface. Others were gathering a second expedition to the tide pools. Michaela, with Jeremy shadowing her, headed up to the little store. Some of the local kids went with them. Others went along on the hike. By the time they all had scattered, I was sitting alone on my driftwood log with Logan and Taylor talking by the CD player someone had brought, and 3 teenagers from the reservation, including the girl named Julie and the oldest girl who had acted as spokesperson. A few minutes after Alan left with the hikers, Julie came over to take his place by my side. She looked 14, maybe 15, and had long, glossy glossy black hair pulled back with a rubber band at the nape of her neck. Her skin was really beautiful, like coppery silk. Her dark eyes were wide set above her high cheekbones, and her lips were curved like a bow. It was a very pretty face. However, my positive opinion was damaged by the first words out of her mouth. "You're Buford Swan, aren't you?" It was like the first day of school all over again. "Beau," I sighed. "Right," she said, like she'd already known that. "I'm Julie Black." She held out her hand. "You bought my mom's truck." "Oh," I said, relieved, shaking her warm hand. "Bonnie's your mom. I probably should remember you." "No, I'm the youngest of the family. You would remember my older brothers." And suddenly I did. "Adam and Aaron." Charlie and Bonnie's husband, George, I remember now. He died a few years back, car accident or something, and Charlie had been really sad and had thrown us together a lot during my visits to keep us busy while they fished. We never made much progress as friends. Of course, I'd objected often enough to end the fishing trips by the time I was 11. Adam and Aaron and Jules, wasn't it?" She smiled. "You do remember. No one's called me that since my brothers left." "They aren't here?" I examined the boys at the ocean's edge, wondering if I would be able to recognize them now. Jules shook her head. "No, Adam got a scholarship to Washington State, and Aaron married a Samoan surfer. He lives in Hawaii now." "Married, wow." I was stunned. The twins were only a little over a year older than I was. "So how do you like the truck?" she asked. "I love it. It runs great." "Yeah, but it's really slow." She laughed. I was so relieved when Charlie bought it. My mom wouldn't let me work on building another car when we had a perfectly good vehicle right there. "It's not that slow," I objected. "Have you tried to go over 60? "No," I admitted. "Good, don't." She grinned. I couldn't help grinning back. "It does great in a collision," I offered in my truck's defense. "I don't think a tank could take out that old monster," she agreed with another laugh. "So you build cars?" I asked, impressed. Well, when I have free time and parts. You weren't happy to know where I could get my hands on a master cylinder for a 1986 Volkswagen Rabbit?" she added jokingly. She had an interesting voice, warm and kind of throaty. "Sorry," I laughed. "I haven't seen any lately, but I'll keep my eyes open for you." As if I knew what that was. She was very easy to talk with. She flashed a brilliant smile, looking at me in a way I was learning to recognize. I wasn't the only one who noticed. "You know Buford, Julie?" Logan asked. I should have known someone like Logan would notice how much I disliked my full name. "Beau and I have sort of known each other since I was born," Jules said, smiling at me again. "How nice of you," Logan said. I hadn't noticed before how fishy his pale green eyes were. Jules raised her eyebrows at his tone. "Yes, isn't it wonderful?" "Yes, isn't it wonderful?" Her sarcasm seemed to throw Logan off, but he wasn't done with me yet. Beau, Taylor and I were just saying that it was too bad none of the Cullens could come out today. Didn't think anyone would ask them." He looked at me like he knew I'd asked Edith to come, and thought it was hilarious that she'd turned me down. Only it hadn't felt like a rejection in the moment. It felt like she'd wanted to come with me but couldn't. Had I read her wrong? My worries were interrupted by a strong, clear voice. "You mean Dr. Corinne Cullen's family?" It was the older girl who had first introduced the local kids. She was even older than I'd thought now that I looked at her closer. Not really a girl at all, but a woman. Unlike Julie's, her hair was cut short as a boy's. She was standing now, and I saw that she was almost as tall as I was. Logan glared at her, glared up because he was shorter than she was, irritated because she'd spoken before I could respond. "Yes, do you know them?" he asked in a patronizing tone, only half turned toward her. "The Cullens don't come here," she said, and in her clear, forceful voice it sounded less like an observation and more like a command. She had ignored his question, but clearly the conversation was over. Taylor, trying to win back Logan's attention, asked his opinion of the CD she held. He was distracted. I stared at the woman. She stood with a confident, straight posture, looking away toward the dark forest. She'd said that the Cullens didn't come here, but her tone had implied something more, that they weren't allowed to come, that they were prohibited from coming here. Her manner left a strange impression with me that I couldn't shake. Jules interrupted my meditation. "So Forks is driving you insane yet?" So is Forks driving you insane yet? I frowned. Possibly. I was literally insane at this point. I'd say that's an understatement. She grinned sympathetically. I was still turning over the woman's brief comment on the Colons and piecing it together with what I'd read from Edith's reaction the other day. I looked at Jules, speculating. What? She asked. You want to take a walk down the beach with me? She looked at Logan, then back to me with a quick grin. Yeah, let's get out of here. As we walked north toward the driftwood seawall, the clouds finally won. The sun disappeared, the sea turned black, and the temperature started to drop. I shoved my hands deep in the pockets of my jacket. While we walked, I thought about the way Edith could always get me to talk, how she would look at me from under her thick eyelashes, and the gold of her eyes would burn, and I would forget everything. My own name, how to breathe, everything but her. I eyed the girl walking alongside me now. Jules just had on a long-sleeved t-shirt, but she swung her arms as she walked, not bothered by the cold. The wind whipped her silky black hair into twists and knots on her back. There was something very natural and open about her face. Even if I knew how to do that burning thing that Edith did, this girl would probably just laugh at me. But not meanly, I didn't think. With Jules, you would always be in on the joke. Nice friends, she commented when we were far enough from the fire that the clattering of the stones beneath our feet was more than enough to drown out our voices. Not mine, she laughed. I could tell. Were those other kids your friends? That one seemed kind of older. That's Samantha, Sam. She's 19, I think. I don't hang out with her. One of my friends was there before. Quill, I think she went up to the store. I don't remember which one she was. She shrugged. I didn't catch many names either. I only remember yours because you used to pull my hair. I did? I'm so sorry. She laughed. Your face. No, that was just my brother's. But I totally could have convinced you that you were guilty. It was easy to laugh with her. Guess so. Hey, can I ask you something? Shoot. Shoot. What did that girl, Sam, what did she mean about the doctor's family? Jules made a face and then looked away toward the ocean. She didn't say anything, which had to mean that I was right. There was something more to what Sam had said, and Jules knew what it was. She was still looking at the ocean. Hey, I didn't mean to be rude or anything. Jules turned back with another smile, kind of apologetic. No worries. It's just, I'm not really supposed to talk about that. Is it a secret? She pursed her curved lips. Sort of. I held my hands up. Forget I asked. Already blew it, though, didn't I? I wouldn't say you did. That girl Sam was a little intense. She laughed. Cool, Sam's fault then. I laughed too. Not really, though. I'm totally confused. She looked up at me, smiling like we already shared a secret of our own. Can I trust you? Of course. You won't go running to spill to your blonde friend? Logan? Oh yeah, I can't keep anything from that guy. We're like brothers. She liked that. When she laughed, it made me feel like I was funnier than I really was. Her husky voice dropped a little lower. Do you like scary stories, Beau? For 1 second, I could hear Edith's voice clearly in my head. Do you think I could be scary? How scary are we talking here? You'll never sleep again, she promised. Well, now I have to hear it. She chuckled and looked down, a smile playing around the edges of her lips. I could tell she would try to make this good. We were near one of the beach logs now, a huge white skeleton with the upended roots all tangled out like 100 spider legs. Jules climbed up to sit on one of the thicker roots while I sat beneath her on the body of the tree. I tried to seem only interested as I looked at her, not like I was taking any of this seriously. I'm ready to be terrified. Do you know any of our old stories about where we come from? The Quileutes, I mean, she began. Not really, I admitted. There are lots of legends, some of them claiming to date back to the Great Flood. Supposedly the ancient Quileutes tied their canoes to the tops of the tallest trees on the mountain to survive like Noah and the Ark. She smiled to show me she wasn't taking this seriously either. Another legend claims that we descended from wolves, and that the wolves are our sisters still. It's against tribal law to kill them. Then there are the stories about the cold ones. Her voice dropped even lower. The cold ones? I asked. Did I look too interested now? Could she guess that the word cold would mean something to me? Yes. There are stories of the cold ones as old as the wolf legends and some much more recent. According to legend, my own great-grandmother knew some of them. She was the one who made the treaty that kept them off our land. She rolled her eyes. Your great-grandmother? I encouraged. She was a tribal elder, like my mother. You see, the cold ones are the natural enemies of the wolf. Well, not the wolf, really, but the wolves that turn into women, like our ancestors. You could call them werewolves, I guess. Werewolves have enemies? Only one. I stared at her, too eager, trying to disguise my impatience as entertainment. So you see, Julie continued, the cold ones are traditionally our enemies. But this pack that came to our territory during my great-grandmother's time was different. They didn't hunt the way the others of their kind did. They weren't supposed to be dangerous to the tribe, so my great-grandmother made a truce with them. If they would promise to stay off our lands, we wouldn't expose them to the pale-faces. She winked at me. If they weren't dangerous, then why? There's always a risk for humans to be around the cold ones, even if they're civilized like this clan alleged they are. You never know when they might get too hungry to resist. She deliberately worked a thick edge of menace into her tone. What do you mean, civilized? They claimed they didn't hunt humans. They supposedly were somehow able to prey on animals instead. I tried to keep my voice casual, but I was pretty sure I failed. So, how does it fit in with the Cullens? Are they like the cold ones your great-grandmother met? No. She paused dramatically. They are the same ones. She must have thought the expression on my face meant only that I was engrossed in her story. She smiled, pleased, and continued. There are more of them now, a new female and a new male, but the rest are the same. In my great-grandmother's time, they already knew of the leader, Kareen. She'd been here and gone before your people had even arrived. She was fighting another smile, trying to keep the tone serious. And what are they? I finally asked. What are the cold ones? Blood drinkers, she replied in a chilling voice. Your people call them vampires. I stared out at the rough surf, but after she answered, not sure what my face was giving away. Do I think I could be scary? Edith's voice repeated in my head. You have goosebumps on your neck. Jules laughed delightedly. You're a good storyteller, I told her, still staring into the waves. Thanks, but you're just cold. It's crazy stuff, isn't it? No wonder my mom doesn't want us to talk about it to anyone. I couldn't control my expression enough to look at her yet. Don't worry, I won't give you away. I guess I just violated the treaty. She threw her head back and laughed. I'll take it to the grave, I promised, and then a shiver ran down my spine. Seriously, though, don't say anything to Charlie. He was pretty mad at my mom when he heard that some of us weren't going to the hospital since Dr. Cullen started working there. I won't say anything to Charlie, of course not. So, do you think we're a bunch of superstitious natives, or what? She asked in a playful tone, but with a hint of worry. I still hadn't looked away from the ocean, so I turned and smiled at her as normally as I could. No, I think you're very good at telling scary stories, though. I still have goosebumps. See, I yanked the back sleeve of my jacket to show her. Cool, she grinned. And then we both heard the sound of the beach, rocks clattering against each other. Our heads snapped up at the same time to see Michaela and Jeremy about 50 yards back, walking toward us. There you are, Beau! Michaela called in relief, waving her arm over her head. Is that your girlfriend? Jules asked, picking up on the edge of Michaela's voice. I was surprised it was so obvious. No, why does everyone think that? Jules snorted. Maybe because she wants them to. I sighed. You ever need a break from these friends of yours, let me know. That sounds cool, I said, and I meant it. I didn't know if it was because we'd known each other longer, if not well, or if it was because Jules was so easygoing, but I already felt more comfortable with her than I did with any of the kids I'd be riding home with. Michaela had reached us now, with Jeremy a few paces back, struggling to keep up. Michaela looked Jules up and down once, then turned to me in a move that was strangely dismissive of Jules. Jules snorted quietly. Then turned to me in a move that was strangely dismissive of Jules. Jules snorted quietly. Where have you been? Michaela asked, though the answer was right in front of her. Jules here was just giving me the guided tour of Forest Beach. I smiled at Jules and she grinned back. Again, it was like we had a shared secret. Of course, that was true now. Well, Michaela said, eyeing Jules again, we're packing up. Looks like it's going to rain. We all glanced up. The clouds were thick and black and very wet looking. Okay, I said, I'm coming. It was nice to see you again, Jules emphasized, and I guessed she was messing with Michaela. It really was. Next time Charlie comes down to see Bonnie, I'll come with. Her grin stretched across her entire face, showing her straight white teeth. That would be cool. And thanks, I added in a low voice, not quite casual enough. She winked at me. I pulled up my hood as we trudged across the rocks toward the parking lot. A few drops were beginning to fall, making black spots on the stones where they landed. When we got to the Suburban, the others were already loading everything back in. I crawled into the back seat by Alan and Taylor, announcing I'd already had my turn in the shotgun position. Alan just stared out the window at the building storm, and Logan twisted around in the middle seat to occupy Taylor's attention. So I was free to lay my head back over the seat, close my eyes, and try very hard not to think. Okay, so already, with scary stories, there are some differences here, particularly with the language that the guys use. Like, of course, Jeremy, like Jessica Stanley in the books, is a huge gossip whore. But with guys in particular, I think they're a little bit more subtle about being a bunch of gossip whores, unlike girls. Like, girls love to be nosy. They love to know every little thing. Trust me. Like, I've had my shared experiences with girls trying to poke their nose down my business and get me to, like, spill answers and stuff like that. But with guys, they're definitely much more subtle about it when they want to be let in on something secret. And that definitely does show that with Jeremy. But also, like, I feel like with guys, they're a lot more outward with their cruelty in lots of ways. Maybe that's just my experience because most of my bullies growing up were teenage boys. But I can say that even, like, Lauren Mallory was not so cruel as to, like, mime Bella fainting in biology like her male counterpart Logan is, for sure. Like, definitely Logan is a lot, like harsher, and he's definitely a lot meaner than Lauren. Like, Lauren, there's a different kind of, like, level of cruelty between guys and girls, is the way that I would say it. Because think about it, girls, they're sneakier, they're snider about it, they're cattier, and they're more likely to be horrible to you behind your back rather than to your face, while guys are a lot, like, meaner to your face, and they don't really talk so much behind your back, but they definitely will, like, outright tell you, you know, that they hate you and want you to stay away. Because I can speak from experience that I have dealt with my share of bullies who were both guys and girls, and I definitely notice a huge difference with the way how they can be cruel. And definitely the cruelty with Logan is so much more blunt and so much, like, harsher than Lauren Mallory. Lauren Mallory, sure, she was horrible and she was completely fake and insincere and her behavior was absolutely disgusting, but Logan, I could say, is definitely worse than Lauren in lots of ways, because let's be damn honest here, with teenage boys, when they want to be harsh and mean to you and act like a selfish, horrible piece of shit, they will for sure go all out to make sure that you damn well know that this is what they think of you. And for sure, like, you definitely do see that a lot, especially in this chapter in particular, like, particularly Logan here again. Like, it says they laughed loudly and Logan pretended he was passing out. The other guy caught him at first and then let him fall. They both busted up again, Logan just lying there on the pavement with his hands behind his head. So yeah, you can definitely tell a difference. Lauren Mallory never resorted to that. She was definitely a lot more, like, behind Bella's back with her cruelty and how nasty she was. Logan is a lot nastier outright. So definitely I see a difference with the way how the genders are swapped and how Stephenie Meyer did it. Like, I wonder if her boys Seth, Gabe, and Eli dealt with their share of bullies growing up. I wonder if that somehow influenced the way how she wrote this in particular, because, you know, because her having 3 boys, I'm pretty sure she's heard it all, you know, from her boys in particular. But another thing that I like here is how openly Bo and Julie, like, joke with each other. Like, he remembers Julie's, nickname, Jules. And she goes, you do remember, no one's called me that since my brothers left. And it's, like, so sweet, like, how their interactions are. And how, and how, they're basically, like, ignoring, Logan together, pretty much. Like Jules raising her eyebrows at Logan and being sarcastic, like, right back to him, and, like, basically matching as much of Logan's sarcasm as possible to throw him off. Like, I actually really, really like this detail about Julie's, like, mannerisms. Like, she is similar to Jacob in lots of ways, but she's definitely the type that will definitely say something back. And basically, with a guy like Logan, she would be, like, the type to, like, speak right back to him and be like, okay, you want to be nasty, you want to be sarcastic to me and throw little comments at me like that, watch me go right back to you. And that is definitely that whole female thing, I would say, because we definitely do feel like that instinctiveness where if somebody, like, especially a guy, says something particularly, like, nasty or something, like, I can definitely attest that I'm more the type to, like, fire something, like, right back at them. You know what I mean? It's, like, it's such a bad habit, but it's definitely something that I notice, where it's like, if the guy's, like, being cruel or teasing or whatever, I personally feel like this urgency to say something right back. Like, I find it very hard to ignore, to be honest. Like, I've always found that to be super, super hard to ignore. So it's like, okay, if I just play along with this and tease him right back, then maybe, just maybe, no, it wouldn't bother me as much if I just, like, go along with it like I'm part of the joke or something like that. And clearly Julie has that mentality because, like, keep in mind, like, she talks about growing up with two older brothers who would pull her hair and everything, and she said, oh, you went along with it, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, but even so, like, I don't have brothers. I only have one sister, but, at the same time, it's like, if I had two older brothers, then maybe, just maybe, I would have been toughened up a lot more if I had brothers rather than just one sister. You know what I mean? Because I do not take well to teasing from any guys at all. I mean, let's be real. My 6-year-old cousin, who is a boy, he loves to pick on me all the time. Okay? So just keep that in mind. It's like, God, Julie is a lot ballsier, I would say, than Jacob, for sure. Like, but maybe it's that gender swapping thing that we see with the entire thing, where it's like, if girls grow up with two older brothers, or, like, older brothers in general, little brothers, whatever, that gives them, like, this tendency to be a lot tougher, whereas if if you're the only boy in the family and you have, like, more sisters than you do brothers, then potentially that softens you. And for sure, that is the case with Jacob Black having two older sisters, Rachel and Rebecca, who were like Bella's childhood friends or whatever. Basically, they resulted in him being, like, very much more softer, I would say. And for sure, like, sure, there's nothing soft about Jacob at all, like, whatsoever, I would say, especially when you get to New Moon and Eclipse and all that. But for sure, when it comes to, like, Jacob and his interactions with the girls, he's like, oh, whatever, they're just being catty, I'll just ignore it. While with Julie, if she sees, like, a guy being, like, rude or acting like a little shit, she'll, like, call him out on it because she's used to doing that with her brothers, whereas Jacob, like, he's used to ignoring his sisters when they get like that. So obviously the gender reversal there is definitely very, very clear, very present. Obviously the the core of this chapter is pretty much the same with the scary stories and everything that she's telling him about vampires and the wolves and how the Quileutes are descended from wolves and everything like that. So obviously the core of everything stayed the same, but I definitely do notice lots of difference with the gender swapping of a lot of the characters, especially Buford's friends that he has at the high school. Like Jeremy, obviously, you know, that's like the biggest difference, like the gender bending of Jessica Stanley into Jeremy Stanley, because with Jeremy, you know, obviously he wants his nose in everything, but he's a lot more subtle about it, I would say, and like trying to get Beau to engage in like the details of the school dance and all that. That like actually is a very funny detail, because Beau is like, oh, you know, I think I grunted in all the right places trying to show interest or pretending to show interest. But because, you know, when a guy gets asked by a girl to the Sadie Hawkins dance and he suddenly gets like, you know, that girl asking him, it's like, okay, because that's the entire thing, is that it's girl's choice, so therefore it is the girl's choice. And obviously when guys, you know, get girls asking them to go to dances and stuff like that, they get to be all smug about it and be like, see, I got the girl, she chose me, basically. And I think that is definitely with Jeremy and Logan and Alan in that sense, in that Jeremy's a lot more, like, smug, in the sense he's like, yeah, see, Michaela picked me. So, yeah, I'm definitely seeing, so far, a lot of the differences with the genders being swapped, and obviously Stephenie Meyer really, really did commit to doing a complete gender swap with all of the characters, almost all of them, and this is very, very cool. It was very cool to read Chapter 6, Scary Stories, with Julie Black present, because I like seeing, you know, that difference of seeing Jacob's female counterpart and seeing how her personality might be a little bit similar to Jacob's, but also a little bit different, how her personality is developed a little bit differently. And it was a very, very interesting chapter to read overall, to see the gender differences, and I actually really, really enjoyed it. So overall, that's it for Chapter 6, Scary Stories. So if you guys enjoyed the reading, you can leave a like on the video, and if you happen to be brand new, be sure to subscribe and also ring the bell for all future notifications. And also be sure to leave comments down below and let me know what your overall opinion is on Chapter 6 in general, like what differences you spotted with the gender swapping and everything that comes along with that, what little details you pick up, what you notice is different, what you notice might be relatively the same as the original Twilight, and just leave those thoughts in the comments down below, because I do always read the comments on all my videos, and I do try to go around and like and love the comments and everything too. So overall, that's all I have for today. God bless. Happy viewing, everyone. See ya!